Hail brothers and sisters, my name is Captain Meatshield and it is the end of 2019. And I thought that with today being the last day of the year, as we head into 2020, whatever you want to call it, I thought we'd have a look back on some of the games and metal covers that have come out on the channel over the last 12 months and just have a little bit of reflection on them and see what I want to reflect on them and see what I've enjoyed the most over the last year, because there's been some interesting stuff and some stuff that I've really been happy with, so let's just dive into it and see what I think. For a horror game that really stood out to me was Resident Evil 7. I had an immense amount of fun with that one because it really kind of changed up what I thought a Resident Evil game was. I'd not played many in the series, certainly not to completion. I really went into this with like kind of no expectations on what I was going to be getting myself into. I had obviously heard good things about the game, and I'm fair to say that I think the game lived up to any kind of hype or any sort of praise that I had previously heard. It was a kind of breath of fresh air to the franchise with the kind of change in the kind of gameplay style, with it all being first person, very much like things like Outlast and Alien Isolation, other horror games that I've really found kind of appealing and really enjoyable. It did a lot to kind of depart itself from like the rest of the franchise, but it still sort of kept it all feeling consistent, if that makes any kind of sense. It felt like it belonged. It didn't feel like it should have been its own separate thing. It still felt like Resident Evil, especially with like kind of a lot of the things like the puzzles and keys and stuff that you had to go about finding. That really felt like old school Resident Evil. Because the last Resident Evil I played the only one that I've played to completion was Resident Evil 4, and I've dabbled in some of the other games in the franchise, but never to completion, so it was nice to really sink myself back into the franchise and to kind of have this renewed interest in it. So I really think that one did sit with me quite well, and it was just one hell of a ride from start to finish. And one game that is probably no surprise that is on this list is Satisfactory, just because it's been an awesome little world builder. I think it's been really fun to kind of see how things have changed in the series over the months, and from like the kind of little humble beginnings with just building the first hub to setting up all of the outposts that are currently up and running, and now kind of out in the world going on a hunt for hard drives and trying to do things to improve the factory as a whole. It's really been a lot of fun. It's been great to be playing the game as it's been getting updated, and to just kind of find my own way of playing it. I know a lot of people in the online community will, post all of their stuff up of, oh, this is my building for making such and such product, or, I've built everything in a main bus build. People, like in things like Factorio, people find their own ways of playing games like these, and it's really interesting to see what people do. The game's got some great art direction. It's very well put together. It's obviously still in early access, so a lot is subject to change, and improvements are definitely going to be on their way. And it's always been good watching update videos from Coffee Stain Studios. They always seem like they're really enjoying their job and having a lot of fun and putting a lot of time and love and care into the game. So it's always really nice to see these update videos and see where things are going. I know there is another big update due for, I think, possibly the end of February. It may be a little bit earlier than that. And I have heard that it is likely to break quite a lot in the game, so I do have my concerns for the future of the series just based off that information. But I guess we're just going to have to see what happens when the new update comes along. But for a fantastic little world-building experience, it's been a lot of fun. And I do hope to continue playing the game for quite a good way into the future. It's mad to think that it was only earlier this year that I was playing the Sexy Brutale. It feels like so much longer since I was in that weird and wonderful hotel the Sexy Brutale was just a brilliant little kind of puzzle adventure game, which had phenomenally good sound design, art direction. Soundtrack was thoroughly fantastic. I really loved just listening to that soundtrack on its own, and it was just a real interesting sort of premise with the game, of it being sort of like a kind of Cluedo murder mystery type thing, but you had to kind of interact with things in an indirect manner. Now, you weren't able to just kind of run in and stop whatever was happening. You had to deal with things from essentially the shadows. You couldn't occupy a room with anybody else for fear of getting injured and eventually killed. Yeah, it was a wonderfully put together little game, really just looked, sounded, played fantastically, and the story behind it and everything as well was a really great little thing to experience. So I'm very happy that I sat down and played it. It's been one that definitely left an impact. Deus Ex Human Revolution is another one that I would say left an impact with me. It was my first real proper introduction to the Deus Ex franchise, and I am really happy that I sat down and played this one, because it was a very interesting kind of look at a potential future for humanity, I suppose, if you want to go down that kind of cyberpunk dystopian future for all of us, which, who knows, we may end up going down that way at some point. But it was overall a fantastic game. It was exceptionally fun to play. I did have my frustrations with it, mostly with that final boss, but no, overall, it was just really good fun. I found myself getting really sucked into the story. There were lots of characters that I really liked. The gameplay was just smooth and enjoyable, and overall, just a really good fun time. I really am glad that I sat down to play it. I'm going to be looking to potentially sit down with Mankind Divided, the sequel, possibly sometime in the new year. We'll have to see what happens as other series wrap up and slots in the schedule appear. And it's probably not going to be any surprise that Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice is going to be here in my top 5 for the year, because if there was one single game that left an impact, it would be that one. I had heard almost nothing but good things about the game. I don't think I'd actually heard anything negative about it until I started playing it, and I watched a couple of reviews which had some personal gripes that I don't think had really kind of been issues for other people. But yeah, I didn't know what I was expecting going into this game, and I'm glad I kept it that way, because it led to a very unique experience. Visually, audibly, it was just absolutely incredible. As far as the story and the plot goes, absolute masterpiece. I really like what Ninja Theory did with this project. It was just something else. It really was. It's one of those things that definitely left a mark, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what the sequel is going to have in store, as we got word of that I think it was a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, and I can't remember exactly when that's due out, but hopefully I will be playing that as and when it releases. So yeah, I can't wait to see where Senua's story goes from here. I do have a few honourable mentions for some other games, so I'm going to give a quick honourable mention to Untitled Goose Game, just for the sheer utter fucking nonsense. It was just a breath of fresh air, or possibly even just a flap of fresh air, and I don't know, there's something totally charming about it, and yeah, it's just been a daft and enjoyable thing to sit down and just faff about with. Another honourable mention is going to Soma for another interesting horror experience, mostly because of the kind of thought-provoking nature of its plot, talking about consciousness and self. It was a really interesting kind of story behind it, and like, not only was it a sort of shit your pants terrifying experience, but it was something that got you thinking as well, which I thought was a really strong point in its favour. And it was sort of tied with Resident Evil 7 for actually being one of the top 5, but no, I thought it certainly deserved an honourable mention just for again it being something interesting. And I'm going to give an honourable mention to Death Stranding as well, just because it seems so weird, and while I'm not massively far into the game, I have been enjoying it so far. We'll have to see how the rest of the playthrough goes as we go into the new year. It may end up on this list for 2020 at some point. I don't know, but so far I'm really enjoying it. I do have some gripes with some of the controls and how clunky some things can feel. It's mostly with kind of like vehicle mechanics and dealing with BTs, but otherwise it's been really interesting so far. So I'm gonna hold out and see where the series is going to go and what the state of it's going to be as we go into the new year. And I've also had a lot of fun working on some of the metal covers that have been coming out over the last year. I have been kind of procrastinating with quite a lot of them and leaving some of them to the last minute, which has been a bit nerve-wracking. And I think I might be doing the same with this next one as well, so we'll have to see how that goes. But I do want to kind of pick out the ones that I've enjoyed working on the most. So here we go. Now, starting out the year with the legendary theme from Guitar Man was just really good, I think. I can't think of the right words for anything at the moment, but the legendary theme is something that's been with me and stuck around for quite a while. It's been, Guitar Man was one of my favourite games on the PS2 just because of how weird and Japanese it is. It's one of those things, the only way you can describe it is it's a Japanese game. There you go. But it's just got that sort of weirdness to it that just is really endearing, and it's full of great music, and the legendary theme is one of those pieces that's just kind of uplifting. And I don't know, I think at the time that I did that cover I needed something like that, so it was really good fun to work on. And it's something that I've been able to play on guitar for quite a number of years, so it was nice to fully, create my own rendition of it, which was a lot of fun. And working on Battle of the Heroes was a lot of fun from Star Wars Episode 3. It's always been a fantastic piece of music. Of the prequel trilogy, Revenge of the Sith is definitely my favourite, and Anakin and Obi-Wan's battle on Mustafar was a very poignant part in the story, and the soundtrack for that definitely played a solid part in that. John Williams obviously did a fantastic job with the soundtrack, as he always does, and yeah, he just writes music that translates to metal so damn well. It really, he's got a talent, but I suppose that's why he keeps getting the jobs, really, isn't it? But I did this piece specifically for a Star Wars set for a metal gig, and that ended up being a lot of fun. So just kind of getting to work on that project in itself was great, but working on that piece specifically was just something else, because it was all over the place with some of the instrumentation. So a very interesting piece to work with. Now, I was really happy with what I did with the Godzilla King of the Monsters medley, because I managed to pull that out from start to finish within 2 weeks, from seeing the film to finding the soundtrack on YouTube, and then kind of plotting out all of the instruments and then slapping it all together and getting everything out into the world for you guys to listen to. Godzilla's theme is a timeless classic, and it always sounds good when you do a metal rendition of it, but I think throwing it in there with the other themes of the principal monsters from that film was just a really fun project, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. It was a real pleasure to work on, and I recently played it live and had it as a kind of closing track, and to end my set with Godzilla screeching through the PA speakers, oh, it's just fantastic. One of the spooky pieces I did for October, Pokemon's Lavender Town theme, was a pleasure to work on, just because it's one of those tracks that's been so kind of stuck in my head from my childhood, from playing Pokemon Red and Blue. It's always one that's just kind of stuck with me, and I've tried to like work on a cover of it in the past. I wanted to try and do one, I think the year previous, for like kind of 2018, and it just never came to be because I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with it. This year, I managed to finally do something with it, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. The lead guitar work was really good fun. I think the rhythm guitar's got that kind of slow sort of drudge and dread to it, and it still retains some of that unsettling nature, but I do think some of it's lost because of the increased amount of instruments that are in it. The reason the original works so well is because it's so stripped down and bare. But no, again, another one that was also an absolute pleasure to play live as well, so I'm very glad that I did that one. And finally, Encounter from Metal Gear Solid was a great one to work with, because I've been a massive fan of the Metal Gear franchise for quite a number of years, and yeah, just wanting to sit down and work on covers of some of the soundtrack has definitely been a thing that I've wanted to do for quite a while. To finally get started with some of it has been great, so there's definitely going to be some more Metal Gear Solid covers in the future. And yeah, there's another one that I was very happy with all the lead guitar work that I did. The solo was loads of fun to write and to play, and I'm just very pleased with how the whole thing turned out. It was a really chunky and heavy piece as well. It's one of those ones that really just kind of gets you moving, gets your head banging, and I'm very happy with that one. So those are my picks for the things that I enjoyed the most. They're not like ranked at all, they're just kind of 5 of each that kind of stood out to me over the last 12 months. If you want to pick out any of your kind of top 5s of things that have happened here on the channel over the year, do let me know what they were, because I'd be interested to see what everybody else has enjoyed the most over this year. Going into next year, I think things are very much going to be kind of ticking along at the same sort of rate. We've got some great games going at the moment, and I've got some plans for some new, interesting music stuff. Hopefully, as I said on, I think the last vlog that I did, getting back into some of the medley stuff, hopefully trying to redirect myself around towards some of the original music that I want to try and bring out as well. It's all just having the time and the energy and the patience. And I don't know if I've got any of those. But this year has been... It's been interesting. It's been an up and down sort of period. Things have changed over the last 12 months, and I think overall, it's all been changed for the better. And while some of it has sucked, some of it has been, very enjoyable, and it's been great to just kind of keep doing what I'm doing. Thanks for being here over the last year. Thanks for those of you who have stuck by me. Thanks to those of you who have just, kind of come along in the last year as well. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. I hope you're enjoying everything that's going on with the channel, and thank you for the continued support and just for helping to make this channel what it is, because my making videos is all well and good, but it's for naught if there aren't people here to enjoy them. So I'm glad that you guys are enjoying what I'm doing. I hope you guys are enjoying what I'm doing, because I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I want to keep doing it. So I'm just going to leave things off here. I'm going to wish you all a happy new year, and I will catch you all very, very soon. This is Captain Meatshield, signing off.